Every AI tool has the same weakness. Ask it about your own company or your own documents, and it either makes things up or gives you something generic. So I spent the last 3 months connecting Gemini and NotebookLM into one system, and that problem disappeared. And in this video, I'm going to show you the exact setup so you can build the same thing and start getting answers that are actually grounded in your own data. The problem with using any single AI tool for serious work is that you're always making a trade-off. Gemini gives you live web access, a 2 million token context window, deep research, and integration across Google Workspace. But it pulls from general knowledge, which means when you need precision on your actual documents, it can drift. NotebookLM is the opposite. Its default mode is to work strictly from the documents you give it, which means every answer is grounded in your actual sources and nothing else. When you connect the two, that trade-off disappears. Gemini discovers and reasons broadly, NotebookLM verifies and analyzes deeply, and the output you get is both comprehensive and based on your actual documents. As of April 2026, Google integrated NotebookLM directly into the Gemini app with bidirectional sync, which means you can access both from the same interface. And setting the whole thing up takes about 10 minutes once you know the order. The first step is building your knowledge base in NotebookLM, because everything that follows depends on having documents you can actually trust. You open NotebookLM, create a notebook, and upload the documents that are relevant to your current project. These can be PDFs, Google Docs, slides, YouTube videos, websites, or audio files. The free tier gives you up to 50 sources per notebook, 50 daily chats, and 3 audio overviews, which is enough for most projects. Once your documents are uploaded, you can ask questions about them the same way you'd ask a knowledgeable colleague who's read everything. The difference between asking NotebookLM and asking Gemini or ChatGPT the same question is that NotebookLM cites exactly where it found each piece of information. You click a citation and it shows you the specific passage in the specific document. There's no guessing whether the AI made something up because every claim traces back to a source you uploaded. For business use, this is where NotebookLM becomes indispensable. You can upload quarterly reports and ask what changed in our customer acquisition costs between Q1 and Q4, and get an answer that references the exact tables and paragraphs across multiple documents. You can also upload a competitor's entire annual report and ask where they're expanding, what they're investing in, and which risks overlap with yours. And every answer comes back with a clickable citation so you can verify it yourself. The feature that makes NotebookLM particularly useful is audio overview. You click one button and it generates a podcast-style conversation between 2 AI hosts who walk through your documents, discuss the key findings, and highlight the insights that matter most. I uploaded a 40-page competitive analysis last week and got a 19-minute audio summary that I listened to during my commute.
Well, they're wild.
They really are. I mean, by this point, 72% of Fortune 500 companies have deployed AI-driven automation suites across their entire operations.
72%, that's huge.
By the time I walked into the meeting, I had already internalized the key takeaways without reading a single page. One important design principle is to keep separate notebooks for separate categories of knowledge. If you mix your product documentation with your performance data and your competitor research in the same notebook, the answers become less reliable because the boundaries aren't clear. A product notebook, a performance notebook, and a competitive notebook each do one job well, and you always know which one to open for which question. But where Gemini pulls ahead is the 2 million token context window, workspace integration across Docs, Gmail, and Sheets, and the ability to learn from your past conversations over time, and that's where the two start working together. Where NotebookLM is narrow and precise, Gemini is broad and exploratory. Gemini's context window holds 2 million tokens, which is roughly 1,500 pages of text in a single conversation. You can feed it an entire year of company documents, financial reports, and meeting transcripts, and it will find patterns and connections that would take a human analyst weeks to spot. But the feature that matters most for this system is deep research. You give Gemini a research question, and instead of answering from memory, it plans a multi-step search strategy, executes it across the web, evaluates what it finds, and returns a structured report with citations. A question like, what are the 3 biggest risks to our market position in Q3, comes back as a full report with sources you wouldn't have found manually. Gemini also learns from your past conversations over time, which means the more you use it, the better it understands your preferences, your industry, and the way you think about problems. And because Gemini integrates natively with Google Workspace, it can pull context from your Docs, Drive, Gmail, and Sheets without you having to copy and paste anything. If you ask, what did our team discuss about pricing last month? It can search your email threads and shared documents to find the answer. Gemini gives you the breadth. NotebookLM gives you the depth. The next step is connecting them into one workflow, so the output from each one feeds the other. The practical workflow looks like this, and you can set it up in about 10 minutes. Start with NotebookLM. Upload the documents that form your project's foundation, the things that are true and stable. Product product briefs, research reports, strategy documents, internal data. Anything that represents verified information you want the AI to work from. Then move to Gemini. Use deep research to explore the questions that your documents don't answer. When Gemini's research surfaces something valuable, you bring it back into NotebookLM by adding it as a new source. Now your notebook has both your internal documents and the external research that's relevant to them, and every question you ask gets answered from both layers at once. But the part that surprised me is what happens when you run the loop in the other direction. If NotebookLM identifies a pattern in your documents that you want to explore further, you take that finding to Gemini and ask it to research the broader context. I was preparing a board presentation on our competitive position, and I started by uploading our last 4 quarterly reports and our product roadmap into a NotebookLM notebook. I asked NotebookLM to identify the 3 biggest shifts in our metrics over the past year, and it flagged a consistent decline in one product line's retention rate. I took that finding to Gemini and asked it to run deep research on retention trends across our industry for the past 12 months. Gemini came back with a report showing retention had become the main growth lever for SaaS companies, with declining rates showing up across the industry, not just inside our business. I added that research report back into my NotebookLM notebook, and now I could ask questions that drew from both our internal data and the external market context. Given the industry retention trends and our specific product metrics, what positioning should we take in the board presentation? The answer referenced both our internal numbers and the external research, grounded in sources from both sides. That entire workflow took about 25 minutes, and the board presentation that came out of it was stronger than anything I could have produced spending an afternoon in Google searching for market data and manually cross-referencing it with our reports. With the new notebooks integration in Gemini, this handoff is even smoother because you can access your NotebookLM notebooks directly from the Gemini sidebar. The result is a loop. NotebookLM grounds you in what's true. Gemini expands your view of what's possible, and the output from each one makes the other one more useful. Once that loop is running, the next step is making it repeatable, so you don't have to set it up from scratch every time. The weak point in most AI workflows is that every conversation starts from zero. You explain who you are, what you're working on, what tone you want, and what format you need every single time. Gem solved this by letting you build specialist personas that remember their role, their rules, and their context across every conversation. For example, you could build a gem called Strategy Analyst that evaluates business scenarios, finds opportunities, assesses risks, uses clear frameworks, and supports recommendations with citations. Once that gem is set up, every time you open it, the context is already loaded. You don't explain your company and you don't specify the format. You just give it the task and it runs with the same reasoning pattern every time. I have separate gems for client communication, quarterly reporting, and competitive analysis, and each one is connected to the relevant NotebookLM notebook so the output is always grounded in the right documents. My competitive analysis gem doesn't just pull from NotebookLM data. It understands the market risks I'm tracking, the pricing metrics that matter, and how to turn competitor findings into leadership-ready strategic implications. The combination of a well-organized NotebookLM notebook and a properly configured gem means you can run a complex analysis in a single prompt that would normally take 15 minutes of context setting and back and forth. The gems handle recurring work, but the last piece of the system is where the output actually enters your workflow. The reason this system works better inside Google's ecosystem than anywhere else is that Gemini doesn't just generate output, it generates output inside the tools you already use. When Gemini drafts a report, it can write it directly into a Google Doc. When it summarizes a meeting, it can update your Google Sheet. When it identifies an action item from your email, it can draft the follow-up in Gmail. This means the insights from your NotebookLM research and Gemini analysis don't stay trapped in a chat window. They flow directly into documents, spreadsheets, emails, and presentations without you having to copy and paste between tools. The practical impact is that context switching drops significantly. Instead of researching in one tool, writing in another, and storing in a third, everything happens inside the same environment. Your research, your analysis, and your output all live in the same place and reference the same sources. The meeting integration is particularly useful. Gemini inside Google Meet can summarize what you missed if you join late and generate action items from the discussion. And because Gemini can see your Drive files, it understands the history of what you've produced. It knows how you write, what format your reports follow, and what terminology your organization uses, which means the output gets more accurate and more personalized the longer you use it. The full system takes about 10 minutes to set up the first time, and after that, it runs on its own. NotebookLM holds the knowledge. Gemini handles the reasoning. Gems make it repeatable, and Workspace turns it all into finished work. And if you want to get even better output from Gemini, the single biggest improvement you can make is how you write your prompts. I broke down Google's entire 6-hour prompt engineering course into 10 minutes right here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.